welcome to my channel, or back to my channel if you've been here before. It is time for another two-piece DIY mashup video. What is not to love about these? In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make the pattern for two designs that I will be recreating. Now this is the skirt that I'll be recreating, and I'll be making it as is. The only difference is that my pattern does not have a pocket, unfortunately, and that is simply because I did not see it initially, so apologies for that. The top is my interpretation of this picture. Mine, however, will have two drawstrings below the bust. I will also be closing my back with some loops and buttons, and I'll be making mine a full top as opposed to a crop top in the picture. So this is my sketch, and I think the combination works really well. The only concern I have is with my fabric of choice. Now I intend to use leftover fabric from my box crop top and halter crop top videos, and I'm a bit worried about the fabric combination and if they will work. Well, the good thing is that I can always change it if they don't work. Alright then, go ahead and grab all your grabbables and let's get started. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe so that you get to see if my fabric combination will work when I sew it. And also let me know in the comment section what fabric combination you will be using to recreate yours, and give this video a like or 3 if you'd like to see more of these videos from me. My name is Ejoma, and welcome to my sewing diary.
The materials you will need are your traced dartless bodice pattern. You'll also need your long ruler, curved ruler, short ruler, gum or masking tape, measuring tape, pins, tracer wheel, paper scissors, traced skirt pattern. Your front skirt should be traced on fold, and extra pattern paper. The full list as well as all associated links will be in the description box below. We'll be starting with the front bodice, so extend the hem of your front bodice by 2 inches and rule across, and then connect this to the original side hem with a straight line. This will create your new hem and provide the blossom effect above the drawstrings. Next, connect the bottom armhole to your new hem with your long ruler, and then mark a point 2 inches below your original neckline and another point halfway on your shoulder line, and connect both points with your curved ruler. This is your new neckline. Mark 1.5 inches down from your shoulder line on your new neckline, and redraw your armhole with your curved ruler, starting from the 1.5 inch mark to stop at the underarm. This is your new armhole. From your bust point, mark your bust radius plus 1 inch down and rule across. My bust radius is 3.5 inches, plus 1 inch is 4.5 inches, so I marked 4.5 inches down from my bust point. Also mark 1 inch down from your waistline and rule across your pattern. These lines will act as your reference for installing the drawstrings. Divide your pattern into 6 parts from top to bottom with your long ruler. They don't have to be exactly equal. I eyeballed mine to make it similar. Number all parts from 1 to 6 like so. Split along the lines drawn. You're going to be spreading each piece by 1 inch on fresh pattern paper. So on the edge of a fresh pattern paper, first gum or tape your center front piece. In my case, my center front is number 6. And then extend the lines drawn below your bust radius and waist. And mark 1 inch out from the first piece on both lines. And gum your second piece like so. Then go ahead and do this for all the pieces. When you're done, redraw your armhole and neckline using your new neck point as a point of reference like so. Also connect your hem with a straight line. Mark 2 inches up from your neckline, starting at the center front and ending at the neck point. Connect all points and cut this off. This will create the extra at the neckline. Set this aside for a bit, and then going back to the main bodice, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the neckline, armhole and side of the bodice, and a 1.5 inch seam allowance at the hem, remembering to fold in the sides as we normally do for a well folded hem. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting one of this on fold. On the cutout neck piece, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance round except at the center front. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 pieces of this on fold at the center front. On the back pattern, transfer your shoulder darts to your armhole by drawing a line from the tip of the shoulder dart to any point on the armhole like so. Snip through this line to the shoulder tip and then close and seal your shoulder dart. Redraw your shoulder line when you're done. Every other manipulation will pretty much go in the same direction as the front. So at the center back, mark 2 inches down from your original neckline and halfway on your shoulder line, and connect both points with your curved ruler. As in the front, mark 1.5 inches down from the shoulder line on your new neckline and redraw your armhole with your curved ruler starting from the 1.5 inch mark. This is your new armhole. Also extend your hem by 2 inches like you did the front. Connect your bottom armhole to the new hem with your long ruler. Mark 1 inch down from the waist as you did the front, and then using your front pattern as a guide, transfer the line drawn below the bust radius to the back pattern as well. The back will have a facing, so if you've used my method of tracing, reduce your 1 inch zipper allowance at your center back to 1/2 inch. If you've not, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at your center back. Divide your pattern into 6 parts from top to bottom with your long ruler. Number and split along the lines drawn, spreading each piece by 1 inch like you did the front, starting with your center back at the edge of a fresh pattern paper. Connect the hem and redraw your armhole and neckline using your new neck point as a point of reference. Mark 2 inches up from your neckline starting at the center back and ending at the neck point. Connect all points and cut off. This will create the extra at the neckline for the back. Set this aside for a bit, and on the main back bodice, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the neckline, armhole and side. Add a 1.5 inch seam allowance at the hem, remembering to fold in the side as we normally do for a well folded hem. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 pieces of this. On the cutout neck piece, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance round and then label your pattern. You'll be cutting 4 pieces of this. Since the center back is pretty much a straight line, you can simply create your back facing by measuring the length of your center back from neckline to hem, including all seam allowances, and then transferring this length to a fresh piece of paper with a 3 inch width. Connect all points and outline your 1/2 inch seam allowance on one of the lengths. Label your facing. You'll be cutting 2 of this. At this point, you're done with the bodice. Now onto the skirt piece. Starting with the front piece, go ahead and label the right hand side, middle and left hand side of the pattern. Now you'll be using the same pattern for your left and right hand side, but one side will have a slit. So extend the hem to your desired length. In my case, I used 5 inches. And then slim fit the skirt by marking 1 inch in from your side hem and 2 inches down from your hip on both sides, and connect the point with your long ruler like so. Extend your style lines to the new hem in a straight line, and on the style line where you would like to have your slit, mark where you would like your slit to start from the waist down. I used 18 inches for mine. Split the pattern from the slit style line like so, and set the smaller pattern aside. On the larger pattern, mark 3 inches down from the waistline, connect all points, and split from the bottom. Set the bottom piece aside, and then seal the dart of the top part, and add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the sides, top and bottom. On the side where the split will be, add a 2.5 inches seam allowance. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this. On the bottom piece, go ahead and further slit the patterns at the style line like so. On the middle piece and on the side where the slit will be, add a 2.5 inches seam allowance up till where the slit will start from, and then a 1/2 inch seam allowance the rest of the way down. Add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the waist and the other side, and at the hem, add a 1.5 inches seam allowance, remembering to fold the ends as we normally do. Label your pattern when you're done. You'll be cutting 1 of this. You will need to create a facing for your middle piece. So mark 2.5 inches in from the original style line. Connect all points with your ruler, and with extra pattern paper underneath, trace from top to bottom, including all seam allowances except the one at the waist. When you're done tracing, outline the puncture holes, and then add a 3.5 inches extension upwards at the waist to accommodate the cutout waist. Remove all excess paper and label. You'll be cutting 1 of this. As I said earlier, the right hand side will also work for the left hand side. So add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the side, style line and waist of the right hand side. And at the hem, add a 1.5 inches seam allowance, folding, tracing and outlining the hem for a well folded hem. Label your pattern when you're done. You'll be cutting 2 of this. Set this aside. On the left hand side piece that you previously set aside, remove the extra dart, and then with extra pattern paper underneath, pin and mark 2.5 inches in from the style line from top to bottom. This is to create the facing for this side. Trace out from the original style line to the 2.5 inch width, and then on the facing, outline all traced marks and add a 1.5 inches seam allowance at the hem and a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the waist and side that connects to the skirt. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 1 of this. Mark 3 inches down from the waist of the left hand side pattern piece. Connect all points and separate from the bottom. Set the bottom aside. You will not need it. Add a 1/2 inch seam allowance round the top piece and label. You'll be cutting 2 of this. Now to the back skirt. Extend the length to the same as the front, and then slim fit by marking 2 inches down from the hip line and 1 inch in at the side hem, and connecting both points with your long ruler. Extend your style line to the new hem as well. Mark 3 inches down from the original waist from side to center back, connect the points, and if you've used my method of tracing, take off the 1 inch zipper allowance at the center back because you'll be cutting your back pieces on fold. Separate the top from the bottom piece on the line you drew, and then set the top piece aside so that we can work on the bottom piece first. On the bottom piece, split the pattern at the style line like so, and at the center back, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the style line and waist, and a 1.5 inches seam allowance at the hem, remembering to fold it in at the side. Label your pattern. you'll be cutting one of this on fold. On the side back piece, add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the waist, style line and side, and then 1.5 inches seam allowance at the hem, folding in at the side hem as usual. Label your pattern. You'll be cutting 2 of this. On the cutout waist piece, seal your dart and add a 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top, bottom and side. Label. You'll be cutting 2 of this on fold at the center back. And you're done, she says as she dances into sewing next week. Don't forget to subscribe so you have first dibs on knowing when it's time to sew. Let me know if you've tried this out and how you found it in the comment section below. Also drop me a like or 3 if you've enjoyed this video. See you next week. Bye. Okay, so this is coming after I started sewing. I realized that you do not need your facing to get to the top waistband or top part of the skirt. So reduce the top of your facings by 3 inches and then mark 1/2 inch for your seam allowance.